Your ego is the only enemy that can destroy you from the inside out without you ever hearing a sound. Think about that for a moment. Not your competitors. Not the people who wronged you. Not the economy, not your boss, not the friend who betrayed you. Your ego. The quiet, patient, relentless force that lives inside your chest and whispers to you at the exact moment you need silence the most. It tells you to respond. It tells you to defend yourself. It tells you to prove them wrong, right now, this second, before the moment slips away. And every single time you listen, you hand over something you will never get back. Not money. Not time. Something worse. You hand over the board. You hand over the position of power. You hand over the one thing that separates people who shape the world from people who get shaped by it. The ability to see 3 steps ahead while everyone else is drowning in the reaction to right now. Most people live their entire lives in a state of perpetual reaction. Something happens, they feel something, they act on that feeling. Someone insults them, they fire back. An opportunity appears, they grab it without checking what's behind it. A setback hits, they panic. They are not playing chess. They are playing whack-a-mole, and they think the fact that they're hitting fast means they're winning. They are not winning. They are exhausting themselves. They are burning energy on battles that don't matter while the war slips through their fingers. And here is the part that should keep you up at night. You do the same thing. Maybe not as often. Maybe not as obviously. But you do it. That sharp reply you sent when you could have waited. That argument you won that cost you the relationship. That door you slammed because your pride couldn't stand staying open one more minute. Every one of those moments was your ego choosing a battle over the war. Every one of those moments was you reacting to now instead of thinking about next. Machiavelli understood something that most people still cannot grasp 500 years later. The person who reacts is controlled by the person who provoked the reaction. The person who feels is controlled by the person who can stay cold. The person who needs to win this moment is already losing the next 10. Power is not about force. Power is about perspective. It is about standing far enough back from the board to see the whole thing, not just the piece that's threatening you right now. And the only thing standing between you and that perspective is your ego. That voice that says you deserve better. That voice that says you shouldn't have to take this. That voice that says prove them wrong, show them who you are, make them feel what you feel. That voice is not your friend. That voice is the most sophisticated saboteur you will ever encounter, because it wears your face and speaks with your voice. It sounds like self-respect. It sounds like strength. It is neither. It is the mechanism by which you destroy yourself from the inside out, quietly, without ever hearing a sound. So here is what we are going to do. I am going to walk you through the principles of thinking 3 steps ahead while everyone around you is reacting to now. These are not theories. These are not feel-good affirmations. These are the dark, strategic, sometimes uncomfortable truths about how power actually works, not in books, not in classrooms, but in the real world where people are competing for the same things you want and they will not hesitate to take what you leave unguarded. By the time we are done, you will understand exactly what your ego has been costing you, and you will have the framework to never let it cost you again. Let us begin. Number 1. The reaction is the trap. Every provocation is a test, and most people fail it before they even realize they are being tested. Someone says something that gets under your skin. A colleague undermines you in a meeting. A partner says something designed to make you feel small. A stranger disrespects you in a way that makes your blood run hot. In that moment, your ego lights up like a pinball machine. Every cell in your body is screaming at you to respond, to defend, to strike back, to set the record straight. And here is the dark truth that most people never figure out. The provocation was not about you. It was about information. The person who provoked you was running a test. They wanted to see what you do when pressed. They wanted to map your triggers, catalog your weaknesses, learn exactly which buttons make you dance. And when you react, you hand them the complete blueprint of your psychological architecture. You show them exactly where to press next time. You show them what matters to you, what threatens you, what you cannot tolerate. You show them your boundaries not by stating them but by breaking them in front of everyone. Strategic people understand this at a level that is almost unsettling. They know that the person who stays silent when provoked is not weak. They are the one holding the scalpel while everyone else is swinging a sledgehammer. Silence is not absence. Silence is intelligence gathering. Silence is the space in which you observe the other person revealing themselves. When you do not react, they have to keep going. They have to escalate. They have to overplay their hand. And every step they take further into aggression is another piece of information you collect without giving away a single thing. Think about the last time someone got under your skin. Really think about it. What did your reaction cost you? Did it change their mind? Did it improve your position? Did it earn you respect? Or did it just make you feel something for 30 seconds before the consequences arrived? Most reactions are emotional transactions with terrible return on investment. You pay with your composure, your positioning, your mystery, and you get back nothing but a fleeting sense of satisfaction that fades before you even fall asleep that night. The person who provoked you walks away with something far more valuable. They walk away knowing they can control you. They walk away knowing that your emotions are a lever they can pull whenever they want. And they will pull it again. They always do. Because you taught them that it works. The first principle of thinking 3 steps ahead is understanding that the reaction is always the trap. Always. Not sometimes. Not usually. Always. The moment you feel the urge to react, that is not the moment to act. That is the moment to freeze. To go cold. To step back inside yourself and ask one question. What is this person trying to get me to do? Because once you know that, you know exactly what not to do. And in that single act of restraint, you have just moved 3 steps ahead of everyone in the room who is busy reacting. Number 2. See the whole board, not just the piece in front of you. There is a difference between tactical thinking and grand strategic thinking that most people will never understand, and it is the difference that defines every meaningful outcome in life. Tactical thinking asks, how do I win this moment? Grand strategic thinking asks, how do I win the war? These are not the same question. In fact, they are often opposite questions. The move that wins the moment frequently loses the war. The move that wins the war frequently looks like losing the moment. Most people are tactical thinkers. They are consumed with what is happening right now. The argument in front of them. The opportunity in front of them. The threat in front of them. They see the piece that is attacking them and they respond to that piece. They never look up. They never scan the board. They never ask whether winning this particular exchange moves them closer to where they actually want to be. And that is why most people win arguments and lose relationships. Win negotiations and lose partnerships. Win moments and lose years. Grand strategy is the art of seeing past the noise of individual battles to the shape of the entire war. It requires something that most people find deeply uncomfortable. It requires the willingness to lose. Not to lose everything, but to lose specific, chosen battles that do not matter in service of a larger position that does. The strategic mind looks at a confrontation and asks, does this matter? Not does this feel important, but does this actually matter for where I am going? If the answer is no, the strategic mind walks away. Not because it is weak. Not because it cannot win. But because winning this particular battle would cost energy, reveal strategy, and gain nothing of real value. The ego cannot do this. The ego needs to win everything. The ego needs to be right in every argument, victorious in every exchange, dominant in every room. And that is exactly why the ego is the most expensive thing you will ever carry. It taxes every decision you make. It takes a cut of every interaction. And the tax it collects is your future. Every time you choose to win a battle that doesn't matter, you are paying for that victory with resources that should have been saved for the war. Attention. Energy. Reputation. Mystery. These are finite resources, and the ego spends them like a gambler with someone else's money. The grand strategist treats them like a miser. Hoarding. Conserving. Deploying only when the stakes justify the expenditure. Here is something to sit with. The battles you choose not to fight are more important than the ones you win. Every battle you decline is energy preserved for the moment that actually matters. Every argument you walk away from is information withheld from people who would use it against you. Every provocation you absorb without flinching is a message sent to everyone watching that you operate on a different level than the people swinging at you. Most people cannot see the board because they are standing on it. They are in the middle of the fight, looking at the piece in front of them, reacting to the last move, planning the next move, and never once asking whether the game they are playing is even the game they want to win. The strategic mind steps off the board. It rises above. It sees the entire layout, every piece, every position, every possible sequence of moves stretching out into the future. And from that vantage point, the thing that looked like a crisis from below looks like an irrelevance from above. The thing that felt like an emergency feels like a footnote. The thing that demanded a reaction gets nothing but a calm, measured, strategic non-response that preserves every option for the moves that actually matter. Number 3. Subordinate your ego to the objective. This is the principle that separates people who accomplish things from people who talk about accomplishing things. And it is the one that will cost you the most to implement, because it requires you to do something that feels physically painful. It requires you to put something above yourself. Your ego wants to be the objective. It wants the goal to be your glory, your recognition, your vindication, your proof that you are who you say you are. But when you make yourself the objective, every decision gets filtered through a single question. Does this make me look good? Does this make me feel important? Does this serve my image? And the moment that question becomes your guiding principle, you have lost. Not because image doesn't matter. It does. But because image is a byproduct, not a target. The people who have the most powerful images are the ones who never aimed at having a powerful image. They aimed at something else, something larger, something that required them to subordinate their ego to a purpose that exceeded their personal comfort. There is a fundamental choice that every person has to make, and most people make it without ever realizing they made it. Do you want to be somebody, or do you want to do something? These two paths look similar from the outside, but they lead to completely different destinations. The person who wants to be somebody is obsessed with recognition. They want the title, the status, the validation. Every decision they make is designed to reinforce the narrative of who they are. They curate their life like a performance, and like all performers, they are dependent on the audience. The person who wants to do something is obsessed with the work. They want the outcome, the result, the impact. Every decision they make is designed to move closer to the objective, regardless of whether it looks good, feels good, or earns applause. They are not performing. They are building. And builders do not need an audience. Here is the dark truth. The person who wants to be somebody is easy to control. You control them by threatening their image. You control them by withholding validation. You control them by making them look small. Because their entire system is wired to respond to how they are perceived, anyone who controls perception controls them. The person who wants to do something is nearly impossible to control. You cannot threaten their image because their image is not the point. You cannot withhold validation because they are not seeking it. You cannot make them look small because they are not measuring themselves by how they look. They are measuring themselves by whether the work is getting done. Subordinating your ego to the objective means that when someone insults you, your first thought is not how do I defend myself. Your first thought is does responding to this move me closer to or further from what I am trying to accomplish. If it moves you further away, you do not respond. It is that simple. Not easy. Simple. The ego will scream. It will tell you that you are being a coward. It will tell you that people will think less of you. It will tell you that if you do not respond, you are giving them permission to do it again. And every one of those thoughts is the ego trying to protect itself, not trying to protect you. The ego does not care about your objectives. The ego cares about the ego. It is a self-preserving mechanism that will sacrifice your future to protect your pride in the present. And it will do it so smoothly, so convincingly, that you will thank it for the destruction it causes. You will call it self-respect. You will call it boundaries. You will call it standing up for yourself. And while you are standing up for yourself, the opportunity you have been waiting for will walk out the door, because you were too busy defending your ego to notice it leaving. The objective is the only thing that matters. Not your feelings about the objective. Not your image while pursuing the objective. Not what people think of you while you pursue it. The objective. Write it down. Hold it in your mind like a fixed star. And every time you are tempted to react, to defend, to prove yourself, to show them, ask one question. Does this serve the objective? If the answer is no, walk away. Your ego will survive. It always does. But the objective will not wait forever. Number 4. Lose battles to win wars. This is the principle that feels most wrong to the ego and is most right in practice. The ego does not understand losing. To the ego, every loss is a catastrophe, every setback is a humiliation, every defeat is evidence that you are not enough. The ego treats every single battle as if it were the war, because the ego cannot see the war. It can only see the battle in front of it, the one that is happening right now, the one that feels urgent and personal and unavoidable. But the strategic mind understands something profound. Not every battle is worth winning. Some battles are worth losing. Some battles are worth losing on purpose, because losing them positions you to win something far more important later. Think about it like this. If you win every small argument, every minor confrontation, every petty dispute, what happens? You develop a reputation. Not as a winner, but as a fighter. And a fighter is someone people prepare for. They see you coming. They know you will swing. They adjust their strategy accordingly. But the person who loses gracefully, who absorbs the small defeats without visible distress, who lets the other side feel victorious in battles that do not matter, that person becomes invisible as a threat. They are underestimated. They are dismissed. And being underestimated is one of the most powerful strategic positions you can occupy. Machiavelli understood this. The appearance of weakness can be more strategically valuable than the appearance of strength. When people think you are weak, they let their guard down. They reveal information. They make careless moves. They overextend. And all the while, you are watching. You are learning. You are positioning. You are waiting for the moment that actually matters, the battle that is worth winning, the exchange that will define the outcome. And when that moment arrives, you are rested, you are prepared, you are informed, and they are exhausted from fighting battles that did not matter against an opponent they thought was already beaten. Most people cannot do this because they cannot tolerate the feeling of losing. The discomfort of letting someone else have the last word. The sting of walking away from a confrontation without having proven your point. The nagging sense that people might think less of you because you did not fight back. All of that discomfort is ego. All of it. And all of it is the price you pay for the ability to win the war. The question is whether you are willing to pay it. Most people are not. Most people would rather win 100 meaningless battles and lose the war than lose a single meaningless battle and win the war. That is how powerful the ego is. It would rather be right than be victorious. It would rather feel good now than be powerful later. It would rather win the argument in the kitchen than win the negotiation in the boardroom. And that is why most people lose. Not because they lack talent. Not because they lack intelligence. Not because the world is unfair. They lose because they cannot distinguish between a battle and a war, and they spend all their ammunition on the wrong one. Grand strategy requires patience that borders on the unnatural. The willingness to absorb setback after setback, to watch other people celebrate victories that do not matter, to appear defeated while you are actually positioning, to wait months or years for the decisive moment while everyone around you is busy winning the battles you deliberately let them have. This is not weakness. This is the highest form of strength. It is the strength to endure the discomfort of looking like you are losing while knowing, with absolute certainty, that you are winning the only game that matters. Number 5. Never reveal your timeline. This is where most strategic thinkers give themselves away. They understand the board. They understand the objective. They are willing to lose battles. But they cannot resist letting people know how smart they are. They drop hints. They make references. They let small pieces of their strategy show through, because the ego needs someone to recognize how clever they are. It is not enough to be 3 steps ahead. They need someone to know they are 3 steps ahead. And that need, that tiny, seemingly harmless need for recognition, collapses the entire strategy. Because the moment someone knows you are playing a long game, they start watching for your moves. The moment someone knows you have a timeline, they start looking for ways to disrupt it. The moment someone knows you are strategic, every silence becomes suspicious, every concession becomes a trap, every apparent loss becomes a potential setup. You have given away the one thing that made you dangerous. The element of surprise. The strategic mind operates in silence. Not the dramatic, performative silence of someone who wants to be noticed for being quiet. Real silence. The silence of someone who simply does not need to be understood. Who does not need anyone to see what they are doing. Who is comfortable being underestimated, misunderstood, even dismissed, because they know that the only opinion that matters is the one they hold when the results arrive. Your timeline is your business. No one else's. The moment you share it, you have given other people a say in whether you succeed. You have given them the information they need to interfere, to compete, to sabotage, to get there first. Most people broadcast their plans because talking about what you are going to do feels almost as good as doing it. The brain rewards the announcement with the same dopamine it reserves for achievement. You say you are going to start a business, and you feel like you already started one. You say you are going to transform your life, and you feel like you already transformed it. But you haven't. You have just drained the energy that should have gone into the work and poured it into the performance of being someone who has plans. And you have told everyone around you exactly what you are going to do, which means they can now prepare for it, compete with it, or try to prevent it. The strategic mind does not announce. It executes. It does not narrate. It produces. It does not seek understanding. It seeks results. And when the results arrive, people will be surprised, because they never saw it coming. They thought you were doing nothing. They thought you had given up. They thought you were irrelevant. And that is exactly what you wanted them to think. Number 6. Read the emotional while you stay cold. Here is something that almost no one talks about in discussions of strategy. The most valuable intelligence you will ever gather comes from people who are emotional. When people are calm, they are careful. They filter their words. They control their signals. They present the version of themselves they want you to see. But when they are emotional, when they are angry or afraid or hurt or excited, the filters come off. They say things they did not mean to say. They reveal positions they did not mean to reveal. They show you exactly who they are and what they care about, because the emotional brain does not have the capacity for strategic deception. This is why the person who stays cold in a room full of emotional people has an almost unfair advantage. Not because they are smarter. Not because they are better. But because they are the only ones still collecting data while everyone else is broadcasting it. Think about what happens in a typical conflict. Two people are arguing. Both are emotional. Both are reacting. Both are so consumed with what they feel that neither of them is processing what the other person is revealing. They are both sending and neither of them is receiving. It is two radios transmitting on the same frequency with no one listening. But the person who can stay cold in that same situation, the person who can absorb the other person's emotion without absorbing their emotional state, that person is receiving everything. Every word the emotional person says is data. Every tone, every gesture, every escalation is a map of their internal landscape. You learn what threatens them. You learn what they value. You learn where their insecurities sit. You learn which buttons work and which ones don't. And all of that information is available to you for free, simply because you chose not to match their emotional state. This is not manipulation in the way most people think about it. This is observation. This is the same thing a grandmaster does when studying an opponent's games. You watch how they respond under pressure. You note the patterns. You identify the tendencies. And then, when the moment comes, you already know what they are going to do before they do it. Not because you are psychic. Because they told you. They told you with every emotional outburst, every defensive reaction, every time they lost their composure in your presence. They handed you the playbook and you just wrote it down. The Stoic philosophers understood this at a level that still resonates thousands of years later. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the power of remaining undisturbed while the world around you churns. Not because you don't care. But because you understand that the person who is disturbed cannot think clearly, and the person who cannot think clearly cannot act strategically. Your composure is not just a personal virtue. It is a strategic weapon. It is the thing that allows you to see what others cannot, because they are too busy feeling to see anything at all. So the next time someone comes at you with emotion, do not match them. Do not try to out-emotion them. Do not defend. Do not explain. Just watch. Let them talk. Let them reveal. Let them show you exactly who they are when the filters come off. And file every bit of it away. Because the day will come when that information is the difference between winning and losing, and on that day, you will be grateful that you had the discipline to stay cold when everyone else was burning. Number 7. Detach your identity from outcomes. This is the deepest principle and the one that takes the longest to internalize. Most people tie their identity to their results. If they succeed, they are successful. If they fail, they are a failure. If they win, they are a winner. If they lose, they are a loser. This seems natural. It seems logical. It is also one of the most destructive mental habits you can develop, and it is a direct product of ego. When your identity is tied to outcomes, every result becomes a referendum on your worth. Every success inflates you. Every failure devastates you. Every win makes you feel invincible. Every loss makes you feel worthless. And because you are constantly oscillating between inflation and devastation, you can never achieve the steady, clear-eyed perspective that strategic thinking requires. You are too high when things go well to see the dangers ahead. You are too low when things go badly to see the opportunities that remain. The strategic mind operates from a position of detachment that most people find almost impossible to understand. It is not that the strategic mind does not care about outcomes. It cares deeply. But it does not let outcomes define identity. It understands a distinction that changes everything. You are not your results. You are the person who pursues results. The results will vary. They always do. Sometimes you will win. Sometimes you will lose. Sometimes everything will go according to plan. Sometimes the plan will collapse entirely. But through all of it, the person you are, the discipline you maintain, the principles you operate from, those do not change. Those are who you are. The results are just weather. This kind of detachment is what allows grand strategic thinking to function. Because when you are not devastated by losses, you can absorb them strategically. When you are not inflated by wins, you can evaluate them honestly. When your identity is not on the line with every outcome, you can make decisions based on what works rather than what protects your self-image. Most people make terrible decisions because every decision feels like it carries the weight of their identity. They cannot walk away from a losing position because walking away means admitting they were wrong, and being wrong threatens who they believe themselves to be. They cannot pivot when the strategy isn't working because pivoting means acknowledging failure, and failure is incompatible with their self-concept. So they stay. They double down. They keep fighting a losing battle because the alternative, accepting that this particular path didn't work, feels like accepting that they are a failure as a person. The detached mind has no such problem. It can walk away from a losing position without a scratch to its identity, because the position was never the identity. It can pivot without shame, because the pivot is just new information being acted upon. It can lose without being a loser, because losing is an event, not an identity. This is the Stoic undercurrent that runs through all strategic thinking. The understanding that the only thing you truly control is your own mind. Your responses. Your interpretations. Your decisions. Everything else, the outcomes, the results, the opinions of others, the vagaries of fortune, those are outside your control. And tying your identity to things outside your control is the fastest way to become a prisoner of circumstances you cannot manage. Detach. Not from the work. Not from the effort. Not from the commitment to excellence. Detach from the outcome. Do the work because the work is worth doing. Pursue the objective because the objective is worth pursuing. But do not let the result tell you who you are. You decide who you are. Every day. With every decision. With every moment you choose principle over impulse, strategy over ego, the long game over the short satisfaction. That is who you are. The results are just the scoreboard, and the scoreboard does not define the player. Number 8. Cultivate strategic patience as a weapon. Patience is not a virtue in the way most people think about virtues. It is not something you are born with or without. It is not a personality trait. Patience is a weapon. And like all weapons, it can be developed, sharpened, and deployed with devastating effect. Most people are not patient because they have never seen patience pay off. They live in a world that rewards speed. Quick replies. Fast results. Instant gratification. The culture around them is designed to make them impatient, because impatient people are easy to sell to, easy to manipulate, easy to distract. An impatient person will accept a bad deal today rather than wait for a good deal tomorrow. An impatient person will reveal their position prematurely because they cannot tolerate the discomfort of not knowing. An impatient person will react to provocation because the urge to respond feels more powerful than the discipline to wait. Strategic patience is different. It is not passive. It is not sitting around hoping things will work out. It is active, deliberate, purposeful waiting. It is the decision to hold your position, to conserve your resources, to gather intelligence, to let the other side make the first move, to let the situation develop until the optimal moment for action arrives. And then, when that moment comes, to act with total commitment. The strategic mind is patient not because it is slow, but because it understands timing. It knows that the same action taken at the wrong time fails, and taken at the right time succeeds. It knows that rushing a move that needs another month of preparation is not ambition. It is self-sabotage dressed up as drive. It knows that the person who can wait the longest usually wins, not because they are the strongest, but because they are the one still standing when everyone else has exhausted themselves with premature action. Think about what impatience has cost you. The relationship you pushed too hard and too fast. The opportunity you jumped at before you understood what you were getting into. The response you sent before you had time to think it through. The decision you made in the heat of a moment that you would have made completely differently 24 hours later. Every one of those moments was a failure of patience. And every one of them was your ego deciding that the discomfort of waiting was worse than the consequences of acting prematurely. It wasn't. It never is. The discomfort of waiting is temporary. The consequences of premature action can last for years. Strategic patience is the willingness to sit with that discomfort. To feel the urge to act and not act. To watch the opportunity pass and trust that a better one is coming. To let the other person make the first move, reveal their hand, commit to a position, and then respond from a position of complete information rather than partial ignorance. This requires enormous internal strength. It requires the ability to tolerate the sensation that you are falling behind while everyone else is moving. It requires the ability to watch other people achieve things you want and not abandon your strategy to chase what they have. It requires the ability to trust your plan when there is no evidence yet that it is working. All of that is hard. All of it goes against every instinct the ego has. And all of it is exactly what separates the people who win wars from the people who win battles. Number 9. Serve something larger than yourself. This might sound like it doesn't belong in a discussion of dark psychology and strategic power. It might sound soft. It might sound like the kind of thing that belongs in a self-help book for people who need comfort, not in a conversation about Machiavellian strategy for people who want power. But hear me out, because this is the deepest layer of the whole framework. The ego's greatest weakness is that it is self-referential. It orbits itself. Every thought, every decision, every interpretation eventually loops back to the central question. What does this mean about me? This self-referential loop is what makes the ego so vulnerable. It means that every threat to the ego is felt as a threat to the self. Every criticism is a personal attack. Every setback is a referendum. Every disagreement is a betrayal. The ego cannot distinguish between something happening to the work and something happening to the person, because to the ego, the work and the person are the same thing. The antidote is to direct your ambition towards something that exceeds your personal interests. A mission. A craft. A cause. A standard of excellence that exists independent of whether anyone notices or applauds. When you serve something larger than yourself, the self shrinks. Not in a way that diminishes you. In a way that frees you. The criticism is no longer a personal attack because the work is not your person. The setback is no longer a referendum because the mission is not your identity. The disagreement is no longer a betrayal because the cause is bigger than any single relationship. This is not idealism. This is the most pragmatic strategic move you can make. People who serve something larger are harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to distract. You cannot threaten their ego because their ego is not the point. You cannot bait them into reactions because they are not operating from a place of personal insecurity. They are operating from a place of purpose, and purpose is immune to the provocations that derail most people. Clarity of purpose is the most powerful ego suppressant that exists. When you know exactly what you are doing and why you are doing it, the opinions of others become irrelevant. The provocations lose their sting. The small battles lose their appeal. You become someone who cannot be knocked off course by the noise, because you are listening to a signal that no one else can hear. And that is what makes you dangerous. Not in a destructive way. In a way that commands respect without demanding it. In a way that achieves outcomes without needing recognition. In a way that moves through the world with a quiet, unshakable focus that most people will never possess, because they are too busy orbiting themselves to notice that there is a whole universe out there to navigate. So let me bring this all together. Your ego is the only enemy that can destroy you from the inside out without you ever hearing a sound. It is the voice that tells you to react when you should observe. To win when you should wait. To speak when you should listen. To prove when you should build. To be somebody when you should be doing something. Every principle we have covered is a way of neutralizing that voice. Not eliminating it. You cannot eliminate the ego. It is part of you. But you can subordinate it. You can make it serve the strategy instead of being the strategy. You can train it to sit quietly while the strategic mind does the thinking. The reaction is the trap. See the whole board. Subordinate your ego to the objective. Lose battles to win wars. Never reveal your timeline. Read the emotional while you stay cold. Detach your identity from outcomes. Cultivate strategic patience. Serve something larger than yourself. These are not steps. They are not a checklist. They are a way of being. A way of moving through the world that most people will never access, because most people are too busy reacting to now to ever think about next. They are fighting the battle in front of them. You are fighting the war they cannot see. They are emotional. You are cold. They are loud. You are silent. They are winning moments. You are winning years. That is the difference. That is the gap. And that gap is created not by talent, not by intelligence, not by luck, but by the decision to think 3 steps ahead while everyone else is drowning in the reaction to right now. Machiavelli perfected this art in a world where one wrong move meant political destruction, exile, or death. The stakes were existential, and the margin for error was 0. He understood that the person who controls their inner world controls the outer world. That the person who can wait, observe, absorb, and strike at the precise right moment holds power that no amount of force can overcome. The ruthless art Machiavelli perfected, now it is yours. Not as theory. As practice. Starting now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Not when the situation is more comfortable. Right now. The next time someone provokes you, do not react. The next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, do not speak. The next time a battle presents itself, ask whether it is the war. The next time your ego screams, listen to it, acknowledge it, and then override it with something it cannot argue with. The objective. The mission. The long game. Do this once and you will feel the shift. Do this 100 times and you will become someone that people cannot figure out. Do this for years and you will become untouchable. Not because no one can reach you, but because when they reach, there is nothing there to grab. Your ego is no longer on the surface. It is no longer available as a target. You have moved it beneath the strategy, beneath the composure, beneath the silence. And what remains on the surface is something that most people will never encounter in their lives. A person who cannot be provoked. A person who cannot be baited. A person who cannot be controlled through emotional leverage because they have done the internal work that makes them immune to it. That is the goal. That is the transformation. That is what it means to think 3 steps ahead while they react to now. If you understood what we just covered, if you felt something shift while listening, type 3 words in the comments. I am untouchable. Not as a boast. As a declaration. As a commitment to the version of yourself you are choosing to become from this moment forward. The version that sees the board. The version that plays the long game. The version that the ego tried to destroy from the inside out, and failed, because you heard the sound it was making, and you chose silence instead. Think 3 steps ahead. Always. The war is already being won. You just cannot see it yet.